Welcome to Nevertheless, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you will discover how to discern your essence and live powerful.
Hello and welcome to Nevertheless, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi and this is our first show since the return of the Helper held on the 16th of July 2016. Oh my God. If you were not there, you need to send a message fast to order the DVD of that event. In the 9 years of the return of the Helper, I have never seen anything like that before. Neither have I ever attended an event, even organized by others, that had been that impactful and powerful. And honestly, I'm not saying so or saying this because I was the convener of the event. I'm telling you because I am still in awe of what God did on the 16th of July. It was my birthday, and just being alive to see that day for me was more than enough. But God blew our minds. I'm telling you, He blew our minds. I can't begin to, there's some things that happened from that event that I cannot even share with you because they are too strange to share. Some really strange things happened that day, and all as God had told me He would do. But beyond the strange things that happened is the fact that I can't also begin to tell you how many people have called me, both male and female, who were there that I didn't even know were there, to say, I have never been to an angelic event before. Some people with their physical eyes saw angels ascending and descending in that place. And someone will ask me, what did you do? Nothing. There was nothing I could have done to make that happen. But I had instructions, and following those instructions might have helped. So on today's show, I want to be talking to you about building according to pattern. Building according to pattern. Because on this journey to purpose, most of us like to build based on what they've seen other people build. But what I have found is that when you build when you build according to what other people had built, then you cannot have the unique signature that is you. For this particular return of the Helper, God was very clear about His instructions, and He helped me to hear Him. And honestly, only He could have given me the grace to follow through on those instructions. For you to understand what I'm saying, I have to try and paint a picture by my words of what happened leading up to the return of the Helper. And then I will show you pictures in real time of what happened at the return of the Helper conference. Please don't go away. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm Bidemi Mark-Mordi. Many years ago, someone told me, Bidemi, you have a purpose here on earth. And this was at a time when my life was hovering on the verge of breaking because I was constantly and persistently depressed. That statement sent me on a journey to discover who I really am. I discovered that I'm a helper of destinies. What are you good for? Have you ever wondered what separates successful people from average and mediocre people? The one thing I have discovered is purpose. That is why after years of fear and living under depression and depressive thoughts, I chose purpose, and today I live powerful. You want to live powerful too? Then join me on Purpose University, a home for you who want a life beyond the ordinary. To be the best you is what we're about. Welcome. This ride will change your life. Thanks for hanging around. And today, like I said, we're going to be looking at patterns, how to build according to patterns. I remember that it was in about June of 2015 that God told me we were preparing for the 8th edition of the Roth Conference in 2015. I think I was on a flight from Amsterdam to Lagos when God told me that the conference for 2016, the theme was going to be the birthing stool. Honestly, up to that point, I had never heard the birthing stool. I didn't know it existed in the Bible, but he told me the birthing stool, so I wrote it down. And that started my journey of building according to pattern. I have never been disobedient in building according to pattern before. So he told me the birthing stool. I wrote it down, and when I came, I called my core team and shared with them that the theme for 2016 was going to be the birthing stool. And they looked at me wondering, what does that mean? Honestly, I didn't know what it meant. I just knew that God said the birthing stool. But then I started to research. And in researching, I found out that in the entire Bible, maybe the birthing stool was mentioned only 3 times. I mean, a book as thick as the Bible, the birthing stool was mentioned only 3 times. And those 3 times, it didn't even look like it was something that you could base a message on. So initially I was confused and I'm like, Lord, the birthing stool is too vague. Can I amend it and call it bringing forth? And he said, no, it's the birthing stool. So I said, okay, the birthing stool it is. The second piece of instruction that he gave me was, you must follow my instructions. I was like, okay, I will follow your instructions, Lord. You just tell me what it is to do. Then he threw what was, for me, a spanner in the works. He said that day, the entire auditorium and everyone who attends would be in white. And I'm like, white? Entire auditorium will be draped in white. And then the people who attend the conference will be dressed in white. Now, I love colors. My favorite color is orange. In my mind, I had done the math, and white all through would be flat. And personally, I don't wear white. I hate the color white. Not because the color is a bad color. It's just that for me, anything I can't put on and be free in, I don't like. I don't like to be, stereotyped. I don't want to be put in a straight jacket is what I'm saying. I don't like the idea that when you wear white, you have to be careful. You have to make sure you clean your seats before you sit down. You have to be careful when someone needs to hug you. You have to be careful when you eat. I don't have the energy for that. I'm too free-spirited to want to spend a whole day wearing white and being careful. So my instinct was, Lord, I didn't say I didn't like white. I said, Lord, people will not listen to me and wear white. Not to talk about the other connotation when you say you have a conference coming and you say to people who are attending, everybody wear white. Immediately some people will think that you are crossing into the occultic. And somehow, because I still have a bit of a people pleaser in me, I don't want people to frown at what it was that I wanted to do. So I was like, Lord, white. And I promise you, I did not share the color code with my team for a long time because I just could not bring myself to tell people that a whole conference was going to be white. But as time went on, I realized that God was not going to change his mind about the color. So about November last year, I took a step of faith and I ordered my own white fabric. At that point, I knew I was committed because the money I was spending on the fabric was the money I was not willing to waste. So I bought the fabric and God helped me. They brought me very lovely fabric. So it was an added bonus for me that, okay, at least the fabric is nice. But I still had issues with sharing with my people that the color would be white. But God was persistent. Then he came back with another instruction. He said, I want you to order birthing stools from Ghana and put those stools in the room that day. And I'm like, birthing stools, what do they look like? I had to go online to Google. And then I found these Ashanti stools, and I had to call a young girl that I have never met, but I know, Ajwao in Ghana. To say, Ajwao, I'm looking for this kind of stools. Would you peradventure know who might be able to get them? And she said, oh yes, Auntie Bidemi, I know where to find them. And that started the journey of the birthing stools. We ordered for 4 stools as I was told, and the entire process started. The rot for 2015 came and went, and we had a great time. So I started to think 2016, the birthing stool, the birthing stool, the birthing stool, the birthing stool. The color is white with a touch of gold. How am I going to pull this off? But eventually, because I knew that was what God wanted, I had to follow through. So ultimately, I had to tell my team that the color was white. And immediately a few reacted and said white. And I said, yes, my reaction too, but yes, it is white. So we have to make sure it is white. And God was very, very clear. He said, anyone who will handle temple instruments on that day, whether it's an usher, whether it's a music minister, whoever will do anything that day had to be dressed in white. And I had speakers who were not children. So how was I going to call my speakers and say to them, you must wear white to come? But I had to do it. So I called a meeting with each of my speakers. I met with each of my speakers individually and I said, this is what the Lord is saying. We have to be dressed in white. And somehow, that's how you know whether the pattern is of God or not. Without arguing, without asking me to explain too much why it was white, they just bought in. And I knew that God was set to do something. Next, I called the team that was going to decorate the venue. I had never been inside the venue before. The venue we chose to use ultimately for the event. I had never been inside until the eve of the event. The truth of the matter is, if I had entered that venue before the eve of the event, I would not have taken that venue. Because when we entered that venue, most of the drapes were in black. At least around the stage, the floor, everything was in black. And I was like, how do we turn this to white? But I had called months before, I had called the decor team and I had said to them, this year's Return of the Helper conference will be different. The Lord says it is white with a touch of gold. Everything will be white. The flowers will be white. The charger plates, everything will be white. Will you be able to get that for me? And they said, yes, we will make sure we achieve it. So they went and saw the hall and they were gracious enough not to come back to me to tell me that portions of that hall was black. Because if they had come to tell me, I would have pulled the plug on that hall. But I'm also very grateful to God that they didn't tell me, because I've never had a venue that was so rot friendly like the Elevation Church that we used. And so I want to give a shout out quickly to Pastor Godman Akinlabi and his team. You guys really stand for excellence. I saw that day. Anyhow, the decor people came and they agreed that they will be able to turn that hall into a white hall. The next group of people I had to call were the music team. I called their leader and I said, we need to have a meeting. And he said, okay. At that meeting, I shared the vision with him. And I said to him, I am not in doubt that you guys can deliver. But if you will not wear white, then we cannot go on. And he took one look at me and he said, that's not a problem. We will not only wear white, but we will make sure we make our white outfits exclusively for this conference. That gave me a huge relief as well. And that started a journey to a very stupendous event. We had the music team was on board, the decor team was on board, the speakers were on board, I was on board. My core team, and these are my sisters, had said that's not a problem, we will look for white. We don't like white, but we will look for white. So I knew that the people who needed to be there, at least so that I will know that I'm not going to fail, had agreed that they will be there. They will comply to the pattern. Ultimately, we got into June and then July 2016. A florist in my church, Flora Essence, came and said to me, we want to provide bouquets for the speakers. I had to say to them, you want to give us bouquets? They said yes. I said, the flowers for the event are lilies, white lilies. And they were like, not a problem. We will look for white lilies. And gosh, they gave us a bouquet. They gave us bouquets that 1 week later were still alive, all white. When I come back, I'll begin to share with you how God took over with these details that he was given to me. Please don't go away.
In a world filled with many fears and discouragements, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life's just simple. Don't worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi shares powerful insights and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, Nevertheless. Nevertheless is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of Nevertheless from a bookstore near you or call 234-813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com to place your order now. I guarantee you will make it nevertheless.
Welcome back. And so, it was the week of the return of the helper. And the stools had not arrived from Ghana. They had been done, I had seen the pictures, but somehow the arrangement to get them from Ghana to Lagos did not work out. But prior to that time, about 10 days before the conference, God had spoken to me again. And he said to me, I want to do strange things at the return of the helper. But you will have to go every step of the way in peace, because this victory, I will give it to you if you will abide in peace. And that was a tough one for me, because I have never been able, honestly, in the last 8 years that we had run prior to this year, I had never been able to go the last 2 weeks to the conference without losing my temper. Because people would drop the ball, things will happen that would just rile me up. But God told me specifically, you are not allowed to lose your temper. So I took a look at myself and I said, what will I do so that I will not lose my temper? So I grounded myself. I stayed home. I didn't go to work. I didn't go to a place where too many people were. I just made sure I didn't go to places where people could upset me. Yes, maybe I don't have self-control, yes, but at least I was disciplined enough to stay at home. So I stayed at home. My staff, a few of them or a couple of them dropped the ball and they would call me. And once I see the call and I know what it was about, I wouldn't take the call, because I just was determined that I will follow the pattern that God had asked me to follow. And of course, part of it was the stools did not arrive on the eve of the conference. They said to me the stools were on the way. The morning when I woke up of this July 16th, I got another message. The stools are in Lagos. So I left the hotel and went to the venue. Eventually, one of my sisters walked up to me and said to me, don't be angry. Please don't be upset. And I said, no, I'm winning this by peace. I cannot be upset. And she said, the stools did not arrive. And I'm like, okay. But immediately I was thinking, Lord, what will we do? Because you said we had to have a betting stool in the room. And then this same sister turned and looked at me and said, but you know something? 4 years ago when I went to Ghana, I was gifted a betting stool and it is in my house. God, because he has a pattern in mind, will even make the provision 4 years ahead of time. And she said, if you don't mind, we can go to my house and bring that betting stool. And I'm like, sure, I don't mind, because I know that the picture that God showed me, there was a betting stool in the room. So her driver drove to her house and brought the betting stool and we put it on the stage. And the stage was set. But God Almighty, when I walked into that auditorium on the morning of July 16th and I saw how white the place was, I was proud of the decor team. But I was even prouder, is there a word like that? I don't know. I was even more proud of the fact that what I saw in my mind as a picture from God, somehow the team spoke with one voice and we worked with one spirit and we were able to translate it into that hall. Then my concern became, will the people who have registered to attend the Return of the Helper conference, will they comply and wear white? It was a major concern for me, because if I was on the other side of the divide, I probably would not have worn white. I would have attended the conference if it was important to me. But I'm thinking I probably would not have worn white because really I don't like the color white. So I sat with my team and I said, what are we going to do? And we agreed that we were going to compose an email so that everyone who registered for the conference will receive an email thanking them for registering for the conference and encouraging them to dress in white, follow the pattern as well, because this was divine instruction. And ladies and gentlemen, you will not believe that over 80% of the attendees of the Return of the Helper conference complied and they wore white. There were a few who probably registered too close to the event and couldn't get a white outfit. And a very tiny few who decided that they will not wear white. But at that point, the obedience for me was that I had conveyed the message to everyone who was involved. So if someone disobeyed from that point on, it wasn't me. And that was my consolation. So when the ushers came in, the ushers were my team at Encompassers, and these ladies worked their heart out. I also had to have a meeting with them to say to them, if you cannot dress in white, you will not be able to minister or function at the conference. You can come, but you will not be able to minister. And, I saw these ladies go out. They made a sacrifice. Some of them could not even afford a white outfit, but they went the extra mile and they all got sparkling white outfits. And they showed up that day. I had never been that proud of my team. And by the time they showed up and they took charge, I just knew that God was up to something. I knew that God was up to something. So here was the final instruction I gave to them. I told them that anyone who wasn't dressed in pure white could not sit in the front row, because we had specific instructions from God and we wanted God to see that we made the effort. So there were a few people who came early, but because they were not dressed in white, we could not let them sit in front. I told my team, be very polite when you say to someone they can't sit in front, but please don't put anyone in front who was not dressed in white completely. By the time the conference was over and the pictures and the videos started to circulate, wow. The question is, why are patterns that important? Why does God even bother with giving you a pattern? The only reason why God gives a pattern is because that's what God wants to achieve. There's no other way I can say it. And with every dream and vision that God gives to us, He gives us a pattern. The question becomes, are you willing to follow your pattern? Some of us think that our patterns are not good enough, and so we copy what seems to be trending or selling. But I think that when you don't follow your pattern that is specific to you for your journey, you just duplicate another man's dream. And I can't prove it, but I'm thinking that God will look down from heaven. And even though He's the one that gave us dreams, He may not be able to recognize the dreams He gave us because we had gone and built according to another pattern. In the book of Exodus 25, God was speaking to Moses about building the tabernacle. And God went into the most minute detail, telling the size of the wood, the color of the drapes, everything that Moses ought to do. That was what God told him. He built. He told him specifically, do this, get the wood from this place, cut it into this number of cubits. And Moses followed to the letter. And why did Moses follow to the letter? In the last verse of Exodus 25, verse 40, God said to Moses, says, and look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mount. What that meant was that when God calls you, He shows you a picture. When He called Abraham, He said to Abraham, as far as your eyes can see, God will always show you a picture. And what He was saying to Moses here was, make sure you build according to that pattern. Now, someone will say that that's Old Testament. In the New Testament, nobody builds according to pattern. We're allowed to be creative. But my question will be, how much of a genius are you compared to God? In Hebrews chapter 8 verse 5, The Bible says, and it was talking about Moses again, say, who served unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, said he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed thee in the mount. It was re-echoing what was in Exodus 25:40. It is important that we recognize that every dream has a pattern. And to be able to deliver powerfully on your dream, you need to know what your pattern is. This morning, before I started to record this show, I've had 2 coaching calls today. And what the coaching calls, both of them were about, was finding the pattern that suited these individuals. And it's amazing, even though it was a call, I could feel the leap and the excitement when these people saw it. Patterns are important. And that's why even you sitting on the other side of the divide listening to this show today, you need to recognize what your pattern is. The question is, how do you recognize your pattern? Your experience, the things you've always known may not be your pattern. But when it's your pattern, it will resonate with you. I wish I could spell it out clearer, but that's what I know. But when you find your pattern, what can you do? Or when you become aware or you recognize your pattern, what should you do? Or if you want to build according to pattern, what should you be doing? The first thing that I did in planning Return of the Helper 2016 was I settled down and I made sure I saw what God was saying to me. In Habakkuk, it says, I will stand upon my watch and see what he said to me. When God speaks to you, you see. So I stood with God, I stayed with him until I could see the pattern that he was trying to show me. You cannot build a pattern that you have not seen. So when you hear go, rather than rush out and begin to run, you want to ask, what is my pattern? The second thing that I did was I had to understand the pattern. Understanding the pattern speaks about why this pattern. And when it comes to Roth 2016, when I asked God why, the word he gave me was strange. He said, I will do strange things. So I knew that if God was going to do strange things with the conference this year, then definitely his instructions to a large extent be strange. So you need to see the pattern. You need to understand the pattern. The third thing that I know happened to me leading up to Roth 2016 is that I felt or I experienced the pattern. Somehow in my mind, I just got to that place that I experienced. I could tell that I was in the zone with white and everything that God wanted to do. I was not uncomfortable to say to people, white is the color. I was not afraid to say I will not put the birthing stool on the stage because I didn't know what people would think about the birthing stool. I followed the pattern to the letter because I had experienced it. God had told me what he would birth in me personally through that program. And because I was determined that that thing would be birthed in me, there was no way that I was not going to follow the pattern through. I experienced the pattern. Now, what happens sometimes is people want to build a pattern they've not experienced, and so they fail. So you need to make sure that you have experienced the pattern. The next thing that you want to do is you must translate the pattern to pictures. Translate the pattern to pictures. Translate the pattern to pictures. So when I called my team, when I called the decor team, when I called the worship team, when I spoke to my speakers and I was talking to them about white, I wasn't so much as hampering about the white as I would begin with the story of what God had told me he wanted to achieve. Everyone who heard what God had told me he wanted to achieve found it difficult to argue with the instructions that came with what God wanted to achieve. So you need to be able to translate your pattern into pictures. I knew without a shadow of doubt what will happen from the beginning to the end. I knew the order in which the speakers would speak because there was a pattern. The fifth thing that I did after translating the pattern to pictures was I had to sell the vision. And in selling the vision, I had to be serious. The people I was talking to needed to know that I meant business. So I didn't go there clowning. I didn't go there playing. I went there with some level of audacity. an authority to say, this is what God has said. I didn't go there saying to them, I think this is what God wants. I said, I know this is what God. That authority made it easy for them to see that this time I wasn't clowning. I know grace was also available, so it was easy for them to buy into the vision. Because you as the leader or the visionary might have seen a pattern, but if your team don't buy into that pattern, they will give you less than the pattern. I was amazed that morning when I saw my driver dressed in white. I was amazed when my husband came in white, my children came in white, my mom came in white. These were not necessarily people who had anything, quote and unquote, to do with the conference, but they showed up all in sparkling white. Why? Because I was able to sell the vision to them. And then the other thing that I did that you must also do is that you must stick to the standard. When a few people came into the hall and they were not dressed according to the pattern, I stuck with the standard. Yes, I didn't ask them to go because that would have been too rude. What I did was I made sure they didn't sit in front because I wanted God to know that I was honoring him enough to follow through on everything that he's told me. Some of us get to see the pattern. We begin to build according to pattern. Then someone, maybe because the person is bringing money or the person has some level of influence and clout, comes and says to us that what we're building will not sell, or what we're building is outdated, or what we're building does not trend, and we change our pattern to suit them. That's very risky and it's very deadly. Now I can go on and tell you what happened at the return of the helper, but maybe I don't need to. I'll show you the pictures. And like I said, if you would want to experience it for yourself, the DVDs are available. You need to order for your DVD. As a matter of fact, some people registered and somehow they couldn't make it. And so because of that, we're putting together a DVD package of recreating the Road 2016 experience for individuals who still want to bet. By next week, I should be able to tell you how you can order for your DVDs if you are interested. But what have I talked about today? I've talked to you about building according to pattern. Moses was an excellent follower and leader because he built according to pattern. Solomon built, even though his father bought the wood and all the materials for the temple, built according to the pattern that God had showed his father. Noah, in building the ark, built according to the pattern. All these things, the temple, the ark, the tabernacle, the temple, and the ark, all signify one thing: some habitation that have been created for God to dwell so that the people can make impact. And your dream is no different. Your dream is a habitation where God can dwell and make impact through you. So it's not less important. You need to build it according to pattern. Till next week when I will come your way again, remember that building according to pattern is a great place to be. Discover purpose and live powerful. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Nevertheless. For more information and resources, call 0813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimark-mordi.com. Don't forget that when you discover your purpose, you will live powerful.